moment in the history of our country.
I think that our country is going to be stronger than ever before. I think that next year is going to be a tremendous success. I feel that if the Democrats get in, we are literally going to end up in a recession/depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
But the defund the police idea, I cannot for the life of me grasp how
you mentioned it.
Time, it's for real.
Now to the race for the White House, and after decades of very publicly flirting with the idea, billionaire Donald Trump says he really is running for president this time around.
Donald Trump is running for president.
This phrase is not from any movie I, nor my colleagues can remember.
Do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself, and you will find the truth behind what Joe Biden has not done for our community and the truth as to what Donald Trump has done for our community.
We're talking about basement Biden, right? What is his agenda? Has he really even told us what his agenda is?
Remember, this Congress started off with the Democrats saying we should abolish ICE. It then moved to we should abolish the entire Department of Homeland Security.
We have to go to the polls on November 3rd, and the rest you know what to do. You know what to do. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
I stand before you today to declare the silent majority is stronger than ever before. 5 months from now, we're going to defeat Sleepy Joe Biden. Boy, does he get a pass from these people, huh? We're going to stop the radical left. We're going to build a future of safety and opportunity for Americans of every race, color, religion, and creed. Republicans are the party of liberty, equality, and justice for all. We are the party of Abraham Lincoln, and we are the party of law and order. Biden is fully controlled by the fringe of his party. He is their pawn. He doesn't even know where the hell he is, let's face it. Virtually every policy that has hurt black Americans for half a century, Joe Biden has supported or enacted. I've done more for the black community in 4 years than Joe Biden has done in 47 years. 2 weeks ago, job numbers came in. The single biggest number in the history of our country. A vote for Republicans is a vote for better schools, better jobs, safer families, and stronger communities for all Americans. With your help, we will lift millions of our citizens from welfare to work, dependence to independence, and poverty to prosperity. That's what's happening. We believe that children should be taught to love our country, honor our history, and always salute our great American flag. You are warriors. Thank you. And every once in a while, I'll have one of these days where I'm hit left and right, but we're winning. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. America will soon be thriving like never before because, ladies and gentlemen of Oklahoma, the best is yet to come.
Good evening. Welcome to Black Voices for Trump Real Talk Online. I'm Dennard, Senior Communication Advisor for Black Media Affairs of the Republican National Committee. And joining me tonight, I have Texas State Representative James White and my good friend Corrin Rankin from California.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Paris. Great to be on tonight.
You know, both of us were at the rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was very exciting. Representative White, can you share with our audience your experience there at the rally?
Right. Hey, thank you, Paris, for that question. I enjoyed the rally. It was just so much energy.
Yeah.
And listening to the president articulate, all of his accomplishments over the last 3 to 4 years was phenomenal. But the most memorable is every time that the president discussed how he has used his presidency in lifting up Black people in the United States. Of course, I'm a graduate of a historically Black university, Prairie View A&M.
Yes.
And when the president would talk about that, the crowd would get even more energized. When he talked about the roots of our party being the party of Lincoln, I mean, the applause and the energy increase. When he talked about how he has lowered through his economic policies, the historically low Black unemployment rates, the energy of the crowd would just grow. So I was extremely elated. I left out on cloud 99, floating out of Tulsa back to East Texas.
That's so true. The president's record with HBCUs is unprecedented. And as an HBCU graduate, I'm so glad that you were able to be there and be a part of this moment to celebrate what the president has done for HBCUs. Corrin, what were your thoughts? Because I know you were really, really excited to be there as well.
I was, and thank you. I think that's such a great question. So thank you for asking it. And I was super excited to be there. I just wanted to sort of add something to Representative White was saying, that one of my favorite parts was actually in the beginning, because it really set the tone of where the speech was going to go. And when President Trump started out by saying, "We are the party of Lincoln," that is something that just touched my soul, because what does that mean? I mean, as a Black Republican, to have our president just put that out there as a reminder, this is the party of Lincoln, what that says to me and what that should say to all Black Republicans and Black Americans is that we are the party of anti-slavery abolitionists. Our party was created to end slavery. So putting that out there as a reminder, just right out the gate, it really set the tone of where he was going to go. And that rolls into all of the accomplishments, as Representative White was saying, how he has lifted up Black Americans and all Americans. So that was my favorite part, because it caught my attention right in the beginning. And I knew that it was going to be a fantastic speech right out the gate.
Those are great points, Corrin, because we want people to remember we are the party of Lincoln. We are the party of emancipation. We are the party of freedom. We are the party of opportunity. And we were there just the day after the nation celebrated Juneteenth. And it was a great reminder for the American people to know how historically we have championed the rights of Black Americans and all Americans for giving them freedom and opportunity. But even today, under President Trump, we are celebrating the great accomplishments and being the party still of opportunity and freedom. And the important thing to remember about the rally was that it wasn't just us in the auditorium, in the BOK arena. There were more than 11 million people who tuned in to watch the president speak on all of our digital media channels. And 7.7 million people tuned in to watch it on Fox News alone. Wow. This is a historic number for any type of political event. And it shows the great enthusiasm that the nation has for President Trump.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Corrin, why do you think so many people tuned in to watch the president speak at the rally at the BOK Arena?
That is such an easy answer. It's because they've missed him.
Yeah.
They have missed him. He has not been having a rally. Doing rallies is a President Trump signature move. People they line up for days. They want to be a part of the crowd, even watching at home. We've been through this quarantine. We've been conditioned to stay home, stay home, stay home.
Right.
So, whereas some people may not have wanted to venture out and go attend the rally, they made sure that they were watching live at home. And you know what? Being in that auditorium, we felt them with us.
Yes.
And it's simple. They missed him. They wanted to see their president again. President Trump is incredibly popular with the American people. And the 11 million viewers proves how popular he is. He's personable. He's entertaining, you know, and he touts his accomplishments and reminds everyone just how much he is working on behalf of the American people.
And Paris, if I could dovetail in,
sure.
The American people are clamoring for contrast in leadership.
Yes.
Joe Biden in a basement Biden. Contrast in leadership. You know, leftist liberal mayors allowing segments of their business districts and their cities to be taken over by anarchists versus authentic, conservative, effective leadership of Donald Trump. Because eventually what the president is trying to teach us and coach us and lead us through is, we don't know how long we'll have this COVID-19 virus from China. We don't know how long it's going to be there. But this is what we do know. We've got a great country, and we've got to continue moving into the future. So he's getting us mentally prepared to move on with our lives, not allow our cities to be taken over by leftist agitators, our great works of art being toppled by riotous mobs and leadership from a basement in Delaware.
You know what? Let's just play a clip from the rally. It was too good for our viewers not to watch it again. Stay tuned.
They're going crazy. They want the stock market to go down, even if it costs them money. They want the stock market to go down, even if it costs them money. And they don't even know why. You know what? They're smart and they're vicious, but they don't know why. I'm telling you, they don't know why. What's wrong with having the strongest military brand new in the world all built? What's wrong with having these great economic numbers? What's wrong with having to close it down? We saved millions of lives. You know, a lot of people say we should have gone herd. Let's go herd. Ask him, how are they doing in Brazil? He's a great friend of mine. Not good. You heard about Sweden, right? Too much. Ask him how they doing in Sweden. We saved millions of lives, and now it's time to open up, get back to work, okay? Get back to work. I recently signed groundbreaking criminal justice reform. I secured record and permanent funding for historically black colleges and universities. We slashed regulations and passed massive tax cuts to give black workers a pay raise like they've never, ever gotten before, and lift up black-owned businesses.
You got a glimpse of what it was like to be in that rally with that clip. And you know, not only has President Trump made all of these record accomplishments for the black community, but he has been the strongest defender of school choice. Representative White, can you explain the importance of school choice and why it's so critical that we have a president, a leader who understands the needs for parents to be able to choose where they send their child to school?
Yes, thank you so much. And you know, Paris, as a former public school educator and also a member of the Texas legislature, we are always reminded that spiritually and statutorily, the most important person to rear children's lives are parents.
Right.
That's a spiritual and statutory concept. And so if that is the case, the question is who decides? And it should be the parent deciding which school a child should attend. So that's why I think this is very important, because there's a spiritual component here. There's a statutory component here. The parents should be in charge. When I was in the classroom, I looked at myself as a classroom teacher and a coach as an extension of the parent, not a replacement or supplanting the parent, as an extension of the parent. As a member of the Texas legislature, when I'm looking at education policy, I'm looking at it as an extension of rearing our children to be free citizens in a republic.
That's very true. Corrin, what are your thoughts on school choice?
Well, as a mother, I support school of choice. My daughters are I have 3 daughters. They're adults now, but I raised them and they went to the school that was near my home. I actually, raised them in a very nice neighborhood. Unfortunately, the schools were really bad in our neighborhood, and I had no choice but to send them to a school that I would have rather not send them to. So for me, something like school of choice, it would have been just phenomenal for me to, when I was raising my 3 daughters, to have that option. So it warms my heart to know that going forward, parents won't be stuck having to send their child to a school that they'd rather not send them to.
It is so encouraging to hear both of you talk about the importance of school choice, because we know that school choice is the Black choice. The Black community overwhelmingly supports school choice. Yeah. And across the board, Democrats, Republicans, people from all walks of life do not want their children to be stuck in a poorly performing school just because of their zip code. We are so thankful to President Trump for being a strong, outspoken leader with results, for standing up for parents, standing up for students, so that we can have school choice, which is in stark contrast to Joe Biden, who said, in fact, that if he became president, which he won't, he would get rid of charter schools. That is not the type of leadership that we need. But you know what? We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Black Voices for Trump Online. Stay with us.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump and you ain't Black, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump and you ain't Black, and you ain't Black, and you ain't Black.
Antifa is destroying our communities, rioting, looting. Yet Joe Biden kneels down and his staff sends money for bail. And Biden fails to stand up to the radical leftists fighting to defund and abolish the police. With Biden kneeling to the left, we'd have chaos in the streets. President Trump is standing up for us, keeping our communities safe, protecting minority-owned businesses, and always standing for our flag.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Thanks to President Trump, criminal justice reform gave nonviolent offenders a second chance at life and the American dream.
He has given $100 million to HBCUs for scholarships and research.
And he has done all this for us in less than 1 term. Imagine what he can achieve with 4 more years.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to Black Voices for Trump Online. Again, I'm Dennard, and I'm with Corrin Rankin and Texas State Representative James White. As we all know, the economy is rebounding against all so-called expert predictions. President Trump's policies have been focused on rebuilding our booming, inclusive economy. He built the hottest economy in history once, and we all know that he will do it once again. Joe Biden's policies, on the other hand, would destroy the American worker and continue to hurt Black families. Representative White, how detrimental would it be to our economy and our American workers and all of our communities if Joe Biden's policies were implemented in America?
Paris, it would be very, very detrimental. These high, burdensome regulations that will just strangle and kill our small businesses in our communities throughout Texas and throughout the country. Right. High taxes, yes. Redistributing income away from small businesses instead of paying their workers and providing great health insurance. It will be siphoned off to D.C. to pay for all types of leftist policies. But Paris, let me tell you this. I know President Trump's economic agenda works. Here in Texas, regardless of what metric you look at, Texas is identified as one of the top states for entrepreneurship, Black entrepreneurship, and in particular, Black women entrepreneurs. So when I'm hearing from Joe Biden, like latching on to the new Green Deal, where we're going to get rid of the oil and gas industry and throw all those people out of work, that's going to raise energy prices, raise light bills on our people, and put them out of business. So Biden, means out of business, out of light, and lights out for our small businesses.
That's so true, especially in places like Pennsylvania that have really benefited from the strong economy from the energy sector. So you're right, the Green New Deal will be a disaster for the American people. Corrin, real quick, you're from California. You know all about high taxes and high regulations, especially on small business owners. Can you talk briefly about the impact of a Joe Biden economy on top of what's already going on in California?
It would be disastrous. I mean, here we have Elon who tweets out, "I just took the red pill." I mean, everybody here in California can see what's going on. They're feeling the impact. You know, there's so many Democrats that I know. I know obviously a lot of Democrats because I'm here in California.
Right.
They're happy with the economy. They're happy when they check their 401ks. You know, they say, you know, hey, I may not like the president, but I like seeing my 401ks. I like opening my envelopes and checking the stats on my 401ks. So they understand that President Trump is helping the American people and helping the middle class worker. I mean, the economy is good for everyone. I mean, here we have, you know, Obama, Biden. It took them 8 years to what they call turn the corner, you know, but then we elect President Trump, and right out of the gate in the first year and a half, our economy is already booming. So what does that tell us? That tells us that the Obama-Biden administration either did not know what they were doing or they did not want to improve our economy.
Or they, quite frankly, didn't care. And we know that Joe Biden has a record of not caring about the Black community, and certainly has put America last and not putting America first, especially when it looks at what he's done to support China. Corrin, again, you're from California, so you know all about the southern border. Can you expand on the dangers of open borders and how detrimental they would be to both the safety and the economic security for our communities?
Well, you know, it goes back to what President Trump said in 2016 when he was campaigning. We're a country, we need borders. It's like what he said. We either have a country or we don't have a country. You know, open border society it's no good for anyone. And the way it's happening now with people coming in illegally and us just, you know, essentially turning the other cheek or pretending we don't see people breaking the law, you know, it's not fair. In my previous profession, you know, I was involved in the criminal justice system, and it would really bother me all the time that I would see Americans breaking the law, getting arrested, going to jail, having to go to court, having to go through trial. I mean, this is a very tedious and expensive process for Americans to have to go through. Meanwhile, you have people coming in from other countries breaking rule number 1, and nothing happens to them. How is that fair and just? How, you know, you're putting foreigners over our own people here in America. We're being punished and they're getting away with it. It's not right.
That just goes to the whole philosophy, the whole agenda when President says America first, putting Americans first. You know, we can't leave this conversation without talking to the representative about open borders being in Texas. I'm an elected official. What do you have to say about the potential idea of an open border society in America?
Well, you know, thank you so much for that. Texas has a very long border, international border. I've visited the border, Paris. These are some bad dudes that are trying to get into our country. They're trying to bring bad poison into our country. Human trafficking, an issue that I've had the opportunity to work on over my several sessions in the Texas legislature. These are real issues. And then on top of that, when you look at the security and the safety issues, Paris, we have all of this illegal labor coming in that's being exploited in a very horrible way, and it's driving down the wages, especially of young Black men. So this is a real important issue. And I know in Texas, we are very, very glad. We're very encouraged that we finally got a president in the White House that takes borders, security, and the economic impact of not having border security serious.
100% agree. And I'm so glad you touched on the point and raised the issue of illegal immigration, open borders, and its negative impacts on the Black community and the Black jobs. It is very real, and it's very, very important that we continue to highlight that. Changing gears a little bit, we know Joe Biden has championed himself as some kind of a civil rights icon in this recent election. We know that that couldn't be further from the truth. Biden is responsible for the 1994 crime bill that resulted in the mass incarceration of countless young Black men, putting in prisons, destroying Black families, destroying Black generational wealth, and destroying the Black community. Let's play this clip of Joe Biden actually praising segregationist Strom Thurmond.
If you have a piece of crack cocaine no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, 1/4 of $1, we passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurmond and myself and others, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation. You get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice. Now, the fact of the matter is, we've gone from there all the way up to saying, under the leadership of Senator Thurmond, and I'd like to suggest that I take some small credit for it myself as well, and others, the presiding officer, that there is now a death penalty. And we passed it a couple years ago. If you are a major drug dealer involved in the trafficking of drugs and murder results in your activities, you go to death.
Wow. Representative White, what's your reaction to Joe Biden's long pattern of being a bigot and his racist behavior?
Well, hashtag racist, rehash rhetoric. That's all I've seen out of Joe Biden over the last 5 decades. And I'm going to tell you, if he's elected, we're going to have obviously increase in Black incarceration. We're going to see just some very horrible stuff. And it's going to be extremely depressing. And here's the thing about it. When you look at what the former vice president has championed over 5 decades, with him becoming president, he's not just going to turn the clock back to the 1950s and 1960s. We're talking about the 1850s, the 1860s. And then on top of that, he supports the Black infanticide of Black preborn children. And what's fascinating about this clip, it seems like he's more zealous in issuing the death penalty for peddlers on the sidewalk in these communities with drugs, where he has gutted out their economic opportunities, instead of having the same type of robust punishment for all of these cartel members, these international gang members that are coming into our communities, shooting up our neighborhoods. So I'm just really, really concerned and afraid for the Black community for a bright Biden presidency, because it's going to turn back the clock. It's going to increase incarceration. It's going to increase the death of Black babies. And while he is promoting leftists in tearing down monuments and rioting throughout our cities, he's going to allow the economic gutting of our communities.
Corrin, can you explain to our viewers why Joe Biden is the wrong choice for America, but more specifically, why Joe Biden is the wrong choice for the Black community?
Well, I think what we learned from what we saw in that clip that was just played was that Joe Biden wants to lock up everyone for every little thing. If you pay attention to what he said, if you have the smallest amount of crack cocaine, then you go to jail for 5 years. You know what ended up happening? People who were addicted to crack cocaine were locked up for 5 years. So they weren't necessarily locking up, these major drug cartels. They were locking up addicts. They should have went to rehab, and instead they went to prison for 5 years. And then saying that judges won't have a choice. I mean, why are we even, electing judges? Why are we appointing judges if they can't use their knowledge, their education, and their background to make informed decisions and judgments and lay down sentences based on their knowledge. We shouldn't even have a judge if that's the case, if they don't have a choice. I mean, we put them in office for them to use their discretion, and taking away the judge's discretion is not a good thing. It does not bring justice. Joe Biden, if he is elected president, which he will not be, we're going to go back to the 1990s where everybody is locked up for every little thing for 20 plus years.
Yes. And Paris, if I could weigh in here, because Corrin brings up a good point. What you listen to Joe Biden on that clip, that's an example of big federal government overreach. Mm-hmm. Those of us that believe in federalism, like President Trump, we understand that there's some crimes, if they're not occurring over state lines, those crimes need to stay, the punishment, the adjudication, the sentencing, that needs to stay within the decision-making processes of that county, that city, and that state. We don't need the federal government kicking down the door, coming in, trying to tell us how to run our criminal justice systems.
That's right.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, as President Trump mentioned, Joe Biden is the last one to ever need to lecture the Black community on anything, whether it's justice, jobs, civil rights, because Joe Biden's record is horrible when it comes to the Black community. And as Bob Johnson said, Bob Johnson, who's the founder of BET, yes, Joe Biden needs to spend the rest of his campaign apologizing to every Black person that he meets just for one comment. I take that a step further. For all of the comments that Joe Biden has made that have been bigoted, for all of the policies that Joe Biden has made that have really, really hurt the Black community and set us back, Joe Biden needs to apologize and needs to stay in his basement, because he's going to do us no good. He's not going to help us. He's not going to be our champion like President Donald J. Trump has been, a true champion for the Black community. But yes,
Paris, if I could say,
please.
I am James White. I am a graduate of Prairie View A&M University, which is a historically Black college and university. I am a veteran, an Army veteran, infantry.
Thank you.
I am a conservative. I am a Trump supporter, and I am Black.
Can I just chime in too?
Please.
Joe Biden is dangerous. I mean, it's one thing to be a bigot. Being a bigot, that's bad in and of itself. But to be a bigot in a position of power where you can implement bigoted policies, it's just outright dangerous.
We have to take a short break, but we'll be right back with more Black Voices for Trump, Real Talk Online.
We know you want to give Donald Trump 4 more years to fight for you in Washington, but he isn't just up against Joe Biden. He's up against the Democrat fundraising machine, and he needs all the help he can get. Don't just assume because his opponent hasn't completed a single sentence that this campaign is over. Crazy things happen, like this woman becoming Speaker of the House. Support the president today by texting Trump to 88022. Donald Trump is counting on every single one of his supporters to text Trump to 88022 now.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
People are really looking for something. I think you have to go out and really work hard.
You've sort of become like a folk hero.
There are no better builders than we have in New York, and a big percentage of that is Black and minority folks, and I'm very proud of it. I say to the African-American people that have to suffer, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it.
The Black unemployment rate, the lowest in history.
1.3 million jobs, more than 1.3 million jobs added for African Americans. You talk about the First Step Act, thousands of people released from jail, 90% of them being African American.
And I want to thank our incredible president.
Funding for historically Black colleges and universities. Opportunity zones, almost 9,000 of those in marginalized areas. This president has done more for African Americans in a matter of 2 to 3 years than any president in my lifetime.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to Black Voices for Trump Online. Let's talk more about what President Trump has accomplished for the economy and the quick rebound we are seeing. Before the global pandemic artificially halted the economy's growth, the unemployment rate was at a record low for the Black, Hispanic, and Asian American communities. And despite negative forecasts by economists, the United States added 2.5 million jobs in May, and retail sales jumped by almost 18%. That is truly incredible. Representative White, what does this say about President Trump's ability to rebuild our American economy?
Thank you for that question. So it's about the fundamentals, right? And
Yeah.
the Trump fundamentals in boosting wages and boosting our economy is low tax rates, less burdensome and certain regulatory environment, building out a 21st century education system and infrastructure system, right? So the fundamentals are still there. And so what was so fascinating about this, as governors were bringing their economies back online, as we were able to more effectively respond to this COVID-19 attack from China,
right?
Those fundamentals just kicked in. So that's how that's when I recognize, Paris, that President Trump really has laid a firm foundation for economic growth, not just for months or years, but probably for decades.
I agree with you 100%. And you know, in May, economists predicted that the unemployment rate could potentially reach 20%. However, as we all know, it dropped to almost 13% and will likely be much lower by the end of June. Corrin, does Joe Biden even stand a chance at campaigning against President Trump's strong, inclusive economic policies and against what is best for American workers?
You know, not only does Joe Biden not stand a chance, nobody stands a chance. I mean, I don't care who the Democrats can go dig up at this point. Nobody stands a chance against President Trump's record. I mean, he is, after all, a job creator. So he's already coming into this office with that mentality. He's a job creator himself. And what happens is, you know, leadership is not always about how you lead during the good times. It's also about how you lead during the challenging times.
Right.
And during this challenge of the COVID-19, he stepped up. And, you know, he did what has never been done before. These were unprecedented times. And he made sure that he gave financial help to the American workers. And, you know, people remember that. They appreciated it. It was helpful to them, and they remember it, and they will remember it come November.
I agree. I agree with you, Corrin. It's leadership in times of challenge and in times of crisis is really what shows the American people and any type of organization the true majesty of the leadership, the true nature of the leader itself. And I am thankful that the American people elected Donald J. Trump, because I've said this many times, he is the man for this moment in time for us as a nation. Let's touch on President Trump's executive order on safe policing and safe communities. Representative White, how does this very, very responsive and important executive order ensure fair treatment to all American citizens?
Thank you so much for that question. When I read the president's executive order on police reform, I was extremely proud. The president struck a very, very good balance in valuing and uplifting the role of our law enforcement officers. Yes, we need law enforcement officers. We don't need to defund them. We don't need to abolish them. We need to lift them up and value them. Because as a lawmaker, I can pass all the laws, and we do. We can pass all the laws you can pass, but you have to have someone there to enforce it. And this is what our law enforcement officers doing. So the president says, look, in his executive order, no more chokeholds unless it's the life and death of the law enforcement officer that's at stake. That's coming from the top. As Corrin says, that's leadership. He's made the decision. 2, no more of this union-directed gaming of the system on, you know, what's right and what's wrong and how do you have good policing in our communities. What the president does in his executive order, he establishes these independent credentialing authorities that will come up with standards for our law enforcement agencies, state and local, to meet. And President Trump I mean, this guy, he is practical. He knows the challenges that our law enforcement officers are faced. And our law enforcement officers too often are faced with these situations of meeting and encountering fellow citizens that are struggling with drug addictions, as Corrin has talked about, and struggling with mental health, because we have neglected that for decades. You know, the last 5 decades with Biden been in office, right? So what the president does in his executive order, he's directed the Department of Justice to come up with some ways to get co-responders like social workers to team up with our law enforcement officers to address these issues. So I'm extremely proud of it. And I'm just going to end with this. President Trump's executive order, as a member of the Texas legislature, I could pick that executive order up now and go file legislation at the state level.
Wow. And that's so important, Representative White, because many of the things that need to be done to make the change that Americans, especially Black Americans, are demanding and wanting, the action needed, is going to have to come from the local level. So it's really encouraging to know that the way the executive order was written, it empowers and incentivizes local governments, local state lawmakers like yourself to be able to take that action. Corrin, what are your thoughts on the executive order and more specifically its impact on the Black community? And if you could touch on how the president also met with Black and faith leaders before issuing the executive order, showing that he listened and was responsive.
You know, this goes back to, once again, being a good leader. A leader is many things, and it's also about being a good listener. You know, you listen and you learn. And that is one thing that we have seen that President Trump takes very seriously. You know, and he's taking the time to understand that in some communities, the trust between law enforcement and the citizens has been broken. And it's been broken by policies that were made by our friend here, Joe Biden, making these policies that you have to, you know, rough people up and take them to jail for 5 years, you know, because you're an addict. This has created just an underlying distrust, and it's on both sides, law enforcement and the community. So this executive order helps to encourage these local police departments to start to rebuild that trust. And it comes on both sides. It's community and police. It's going to take an effort from both sides to start rebuilding that trust. And putting an end to chokeholds is one step forward to rebuilding that trust. When you stop having citizens afraid of, okay, if the police arrest me and they handcuff me, are they going to also choke me to death? You know, that helps citizens start to once again rebuild that trust with law enforcement.
Those are great points, Corrin, and I agree with you. And, you know, the time is flying by, and I'd like to get your final thoughts from each of you. But before we do that, I want to give all of our viewers at home some ways to get involved in our efforts to re-elect President Donald J. Trump. To join Black Voices for Trump, text WOKE to 88022. To stay connected with the campaign, I encourage you to download the Trump 2020 app, available on both the Android and Apple stores. Now, Representative White and Corrin, what final message do you want to leave with the American people watching our broadcast tonight?
Thank you so much. And Paris, I want to thank you for having me on. You're doing a great job articulating the strong record of our president. And this is my message. President Trump has a strong record of fighting for the interests of American Blacks. You've experienced the lowest record of unemployment rate for Black Americans since they've been even taking these records. You are achieving landmark, historic criminal justice reform and police reform. These have been issues that Democrats have been bumping their gums about for decades and never really done anything about it. He has secured the border and stopped the cheap labor from pouring over, you know, driving down the wages of your young cousins, your young brothers, your young kids, your young children. This president has boosted the funding for historical historically black universities, something that, again, people have been talking about for decades, something we were always clamoring about when I was a student at Prairie View A&M University. President Trump has done it. At some point in time, we have to recognize record over rhetoric.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump in 4 years has a record, not just rhetoric like Joe Biden and other Democrats. And just think, if we could do 4 more years, what do we have to win more if he gets 4 more years? So please join us to get President Trump reelected to continue fighting for American blacks.
Corrin, what are your final thoughts?
Well, first of all, Paris, thank you so much for hosting tonight, and thank you for inviting me. This has been just such a pleasure to get out there and just really have a chance to talk to the American people. And I will piggyback on what Representative White said. You know, all the accomplishments that, you know, President Trump has done, all the great strides he started making for the Black community. You know, I just want to encourage Black Americans to really do their homework when it comes to Joe Biden. Really, you know, look at some of the harmful things, the harmful policies that he has implemented in the past, and really try to understand that if he were to be reelected, which he won't be, how damaging and detrimental it will be for our communities, for our families, and just be encouraged that it's okay to vote for a Republican. We have, you know, we at the Black Voices for Trump, we're here to represent you. We represent the Black community. Use us as your voice and just be encouraged. You know, you're not alone. We're here to support you. And, you know, we're in this together. You know, this is our fight for our communities and our improvement and our well-being going forward. So thank you again, Paris, for hosting this. This is a very important conversation, so I really appreciate it.
Well, you know, thank you both for joining us here tonight, and thank you to all of the great patriots at home for tuning in. Be sure to join us again next time for more Black Voices for Trump Real Talk Online. Have a great night.